Dr. Lachowski, if you would join us, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just delighted that we've assembled this conference on such an important issue. I'm honored that so many of you are here and that so many of you have come from so far away. It's a tribute to your commitment to high ideals when it comes to trying to bring about some kind of and explore the possibilities of political change in one of the world's great tyrannies these days. I just wanted to share with you a few thoughts about my own personal interest in this whole question of political transition, but begin a little bit by just sharing with you some of my own personal interest in Iran. As it happens, my mother had spent 2.5 years in the Soviet Gulag archipelago as a political prisoner, and she, after 2.5 years, having almost starved to death, she made her way across Central Asia with a girlfriend and ended up in Iran, along with a lot of other Polish prisoners who had been deported by the Stalin regime. She ended up joining the Polish diplomatic legation in Tehran and became head of its social welfare section there, helping to get jobs for people who were escaping from Stalin's tyranny. My father had been fighting the Nazis in North Africa, in the Polish army in North Africa, and he was then called back into the Polish diplomatic service, where he was stationed in Tehran in time for the Tehran conference, and my parents met there, and they were married. They had their honeymoon at the Darbent Hotel, and lived there for the last year and a half or 2 years of the war. And after the Yalta Agreement was signed, and it became clear that there would be no freedom for them in Poland, they came to the United States, and this country offered them opportunity and safe haven and freedom. And one of the reasons why I founded the Institute of World Politics after my government service, I used to be in the State Department and the National Security Council, is that I have a particular appreciation for the form of government that was able to give the kind of freedom and opportunity to people such as my parents and so many others, including many of you who are here in this room. But the principles upon which a government like ours is based are relevant to everybody in the world. As our Declaration of Independence says, all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, not just Americans. And I also wanted to just let you know that I've been to Iran a number of times. I have water skied in the Caspian Sea when I was an adolescent. I love Iranian cuisine. I even learned how to drink dukh abali. I love your Persian rice and so many of the other things. I have a little collection of Persian miniatures and Persian carpets. I have books on Persian art and architecture. I have a great affection for the incredibly historic and rich culture of your country, a magnificent and glorious history, and that has made so many contributions to world civilization. And so I wanted you to know that there is something in my own background that has a great affinity with Iran, and my heart weeps when I think about the suffering of so many people that has been going on there ever since. People who didn't care so much about religion, but who cared about their own theocratic tyranny, ended up taking power and manifesting their various corruptions over the past couple of decades. There are many Iranians who have had problems with American involvement in that part of the world. I have some sympathy for that. People like to mind their own business. But I hope that if any of you are in this room, you may understand that the United States was trying to lead a coalition of forces in the world against one of the greatest tyrannies in the Cold War, against the Soviet Union. And of course, Iran was long the object not only of imperial Russia and its desires to get a warm water port so that they could dip their toes in the warm waters of the Persian Gulf, but during the Soviet period there were numerous attempts to perpetrate a communist takeover in Iran. The attempt to set up the so-called Republic of Gilan in 1921, the attempt to set up the Autonomous Republic of Azerbaijan in 1946, and the constant efforts of subversion, the support of the Tudeh party, and I happen to believe and have very good reason to know, because I was exposed to some of the governmental sources of information about these things, that there was an enormous amount of Soviet subversion involved that helped actually the Ayatollahs come to power in 1979. Iran has this very important great geostrategic significance, and one of the most strategic locations in the world, and it is not unnatural that those powers, first like Great Britain and then the United States, should have an interest that Iran should remain an independent country and not a vassal of the empire to the north, or perhaps any others that might be attempting to dominate that part of the world. Having been a Sovietologist, having served as Ronald Reagan's Soviet affairs advisor in the White House for 4 years, I was involved in the political war to try to overthrow and bring about the government, and to bring about political change within, peaceful political change within the Soviet Union. And I wanted to give you just very briefly one or two some reflections of the lessons of that particular situation for those who would try to bring about political change in Iran. The central fact of political life in Iran today is the illegitimacy of the regime. And when regimes are there without the consent of the governed, they have one fundamental problem, and that is fear of their own people. And when you're afraid of your own people, you set up an internal security system to deal with that, which involves everything from ideological type thought control to the informants and all of the other more material elements of internal security systems. Regimes like this fear truth. They base so much of their rule on organized falsehood. The lie conceals errors of the regime, crimes of the regime. It serves as a vehicle to enforce political conformity. Regimes like this fear alternative ideas, and particularly they fear the ideas of those who would argue for a political system based on the consent of the governed, because these are ideas that can inspire internal resistance. A key element of the internal security system of tyrannies like this is that they have to induce people into a psychological sense of futile resignation, where people believe that resistance to the tyranny is futile, and so why even try? A huge part of our strategy in the Reagan administration was a strategy of public diplomacy. Yes, there was a military buildup. Yes, there was support of anti-communist movements. Yes, there was the support of, the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. Yes, there were the efforts to deprive them of technology and lower the oil prices so that they would get less hard currency. All of that's true. But ultimately, none of those things fully explain why hundreds of thousands of people would take to the streets in Moscow and many of the other Union republics of the Soviet Union to demand political change. People were able to do that when they became emboldened, when they developed the courage to go out and do these things. And this was developed partly because people were finally given to believe, because of leadership, I believe, in the West. I think part of it had to do with the appearance of a Polish Pope in Poland, that they should not be afraid, and that they were